For nearly a century, Doris Day carried a secret she never dared to share. To the world, she was America's golden girl, smiling, graceful, untouchable. But behind closed doors, one night in April 1968 shattered everything. That was the night her husband, Martin Melcher, died. The night she opened the books and realized her $20 million fortune had vanished. The night she discovered contracts she never signed, binding her to a future she never chose. For decades, only her closest friend knew the truth. And now, after years of silence, the heartbreaking secret Doris Day tried to take to her grave is finally revealed. The truth behind Doris Day's life is a story of betrayal, hidden documents, and a devastating phone call that came far too late. Long before Hollywood fame, her journey began in the working-class neighborhoods of Cincinnati, Ohio. Born Doris Mary Kaphoff on April 3, 1922, she was raised by her father William, a choir master and music teacher, and her mother Alma, who devoted herself to the family. Life was far from easy, but music filled the home, shaping Doris in ways no one could have imagined. From an early age, her voice carried both innocence and power, hinting at the stardom that would one day captivate the world. Even in her childhood, Doris's German-American family lived modestly, but they gave her what mattered most: love, discipline, and encouragement. She grew up singing in church choirs, competing in local talent shows, and earning admiration from neighbors who knew they were witnessing something special. By the time she was just 14, Doris had already shown the relentless determination and drive that would propel her far beyond her humble beginnings. But it was at that very age that her life would take an unexpected turn, one that would change everything forever. At just 14, Doris teamed up with a young dancer named Jerry Doherty. Together, they became an inseparable duo, lighting up local stages with their energy and grace. When they entered a talent contest in Cincinnati, no one expected what came next. Against all odds, Doris and Jerry won first place, taking home $500, an incredible fortune in the 1930s, equal to more than $9,000 today. But the prize was worth far more than the money. For Doris, it was validation. Proof that her talent wasn't just a dream, but a gift powerful enough to carry her to Hollywood. With Jerry by her side, she packed her ambitions and prepared to chase stardom on the biggest stage of them all. But destiny had something else in store. Just as Doris stood on the edge of a new beginning, tragedy ripped her dreams apart. At only 15 years old, while riding in a car, her life changed in an instant. The vehicle was struck by a train, a devastating collision that left her right leg shattered. For Doris, the spotlight she had been chasing suddenly went dark. The girl who dreamed of dancing on Hollywood's brightest stages now faced the heartbreaking reality that her future as a dancer might have ended before it even began. The injury was so severe that she had to remain in bed for several months. Her dancing career ended before it even had the chance to start. The timing was devastating. One evening, she was envisioning Hollywood. The next, she was confronted with an unplanned future. The pain, both physical and emotional, was immense. Yet, Doris was determined not to surrender. While recovering in bed, Doris discovered a new source of inspiration. She tuned into the radio and became captivated by the voice of Ella Fitzgerald. The way Ella sang resonated deeply within her. Doris resolved that if she couldn't dance, she would pursue singing instead. She began taking vocal lessons and dedicated herself wholeheartedly to each practice session. Gradually, singing evolved into her new passion. The accident that could have shattered her dreams instead sparked a new aspiration. Doris reinvented herself from a dancer to a singer, demonstrating a resilience that would characterize her life. Her significant opportunity arose when band leader Barney Rapp heard her sing. He thought her real name, Kapelhoff, was too lengthy for the entertainment industry. Motivated by the song Day After Day, she adopted the stage name Doris Day. This marked a fresh beginning and the moment she truly entered the entertainment realm. At just 18, Doris became a part of Les Brown and his band of renown. Although she had a brief stint with Bob Crosby's band prior, Les Brown recognized her unique talent. He referred to her as the ideal singer. Gifted, insightful about the lyrics, and charming in appearance, Doris's clear and sincere voice was distinctive. She didn't exaggerate the emotion, she simply sang with genuine feeling. During World War II, her voice became a source of solace for Americans at home. Even when a recording ban prevented many musicians from producing records between 1942 and 1944, Doris remained in the hearts of the public through live performances and radio broadcasts. Sentimental journey followed. On November 20, 1944, she and Les Brown recorded it. It made a sensation when it was broadcast on the radio in early 1945. Millions of returning soldiers could relate to the song. It sold over 1 million copies, peaked at number 1 on the Billboard chart, and spent 23 weeks in the top 10. At a time when it was difficult to manufacture records due to a lack of materials, that was amazing. Recorded on March 2, 1945, her subsequent single, My Dreams Are Getting Better All the Time, similarly reached the top of the charts. Doris Day became well known as the voice of a generation because to her tunes. Doris went solo in 1946. One of the most prosperous recording careers in history ensued. She recorded more than 650 songs between 1947 and 1967. Jazz, pop, country, Latin, and even soft rock were all represented in her work. She put out 20 studio recordings and 11 film albums. Half of her albums peaked at number 1 between 1949 and 1955, while at least 8 of them made it to the top 5. 9 of her singles sold over 1 million copies between 1948 and 1958. Together, her songs were on the charts for over 8 years. Her success was enormous, but what really counted was the impact she had on others. A film test at Warner Brothers was the beginning of Doris Day's career as a celebrity. They saw anything unusual about her. A combination of warmth, beauty, and singing ability that surpasses the standard starlets of the era. One minor issue existed. Credit listings were complicated by the fact that another actress, Doris Day, was already acting in westerns. Warner Brothers, however, was unconcerned. They were certain they had discovered the next great thing in Hollywood. They signed her to her first film contract in 1946. It was more than just a job offer. It was a daring wager on a new star who would soon shine on the big screen. That wager was profitable 2 years later. Doris first appeared in Romance, on the High Seas in 1948. The film, which was directed by Michael Curtis, featured her prominently. She instantly won over audiences. Her beauty glistened. Her enthusiasm was contagious. The theater appeared to hold its breath when she sang. The movie was a success. The soundtrack was also praised. Doris Day became more than just a fresh actress overnight. Her ascent felt unstoppable, and she was a star. She demonstrated that it wasn't luck in 1949. She starred in It's a Great Feeling and My Dream Is Yours that year. They were both comedies with music. Both were box office hits. Her voice and cheerful disposition were on display in My Dream Is Yours. The deal was sealed with It's a Great Feeling. Doris Day might be the star of a movie and win over both reviewers and viewers. Doris was only beginning her career as Hollywood's new musical queen. Few could keep up with the pace that followed. She starred in Young Man with a Horn, The West Point Story, and Tea for Two in 1950. Although each movie showcased a different aspect of her talent, 1951 was far superior. She produced 5 films in a single year, including Broadway's Lullaby and On Moonlight Bay. Despite the heavy workload, Doris never faltered. Because she put her all into each part, she developed a reputation for professionalism that studios respected and trusted. She was more than a celebrity. She was a tireless worker who set the standard for commitment and produced success after hit. Calamity Jane followed in 1953. Doris felt most comfortable in this job. She declared it her favorite later in 2019. Growing up, she identified as a tomboy, and playing Jane allowed her to embrace that aspect of herself. She sung as if the entire West was listening, shot weapons, and rode horses. The audiences adored it. The movie completely defied gender norms. In addition to being a bold, boisterous woman dressed like a guy, this figure had a kind heart. The movie's song, Secret Love, became an anthem for people who are trying to find acceptance after winning the Oscar for Best Original Song. Calamity Jane, one of Doris's most renowned roles, was made into a stage musical in 1961 as a result of the film's popularity. In 1956, Doris stunned audiences once more with Alfred Hitchcock's The Man Who Knew Too Much. She revealed a fresh side in the thriller. She portrayed a mother whose son is abducted, Joe McKenna. The playful songbird was vanished. She was replaced by a determined and fearful lady. The film became a hit after receiving overwhelmingly positive reviews at its premiere. One of her most impactful moments is still when she discovers her son is missing. And it wasn't simply a song when she performed Care Sarah, which was penned for the movie. It was a lullaby wrapped around a mother's wail. The song became Doris's hallmark and won an Oscar in 1956. Always connected to that eerie, lovely moment. Beginning with Pillow Talk in 1959, Doris and Rock Hudson rose to prominence as Hollywood's favorite duo. With its lively, obscene comedy, the movie was bold for its time. It topped the box office for 7 weeks in a row and brought in $18,50,000 domestically. For Best Actress, Doris received her lone Oscar nomination. 2 more hits came as a result of their excellent relationship. In 1961, Lover came back with $7. Send Me No Flowers in 1964 and $6 million in rentals. In addition to providing entertainment, the movies questioned conventional wisdom around sex and love. Because it was thought to be excessively provocative, the production code even attempted to prevent Pillow Talk from utilizing its title. As evidence of its enduring influence, the movie was included in the National Film Registry in 2009. Alongside the biggest personalities in Hollywood, Doris was equally formidable. She co-starred with Clark Gable, who was 57 at the time, in Teacher's Pet. Although many were astonished by their pairing, viewers adored it, and the movie became a success. Gable complimented her humor and strength. She co-starred with James Cagney in Love Me or Leave Me, and many people thought she should have been nominated for an Oscar for her performance. She played alongside Ronald Reagan in Storm Warning and The Winning Team, and she co-starred with Cary Grant in That Touch of Mink. Before politics took over his life, she even had a brief relationship with Reagan. Doris Day was only 16 when she joined Barney Rapp's band in Cincinnati in 1940. Her voice was immediately drawing attention. She got to know Al Jordan, a 23-year-old trombonist, there. Doris didn't like him at first. Her mother agreed when she said, "He's a creep, and I wouldn't go out with him if they were giving away gold nuggets at the movie." His gloomy demeanor and the age difference were warning signs. Jordan didn't give up, though. He repeatedly offered to take her home by car. Slowly, Doris thought he was deep since he was brooding. She married him in New York City in April 1941, defying her mother's advice. Doris was only 19. They managed to fit the wedding in between her shows, and for their celebration, they had a brief dinner at a diner. What began as an impetuous choice by a young woman quickly became a nightmare. The horror started almost immediately. Jordan's violent side erupted just 2 days after the wedding. Doris thanked a bandmate for a gift by kissing his cheek. It only required that. Jordan brutally assaulted her after dragging her to their hotel room. He also publicly humiliated her. He once slapped her in front of everyone at a newsstand after spotting her in a swimsuit on a magazine cover. He secluded her, called her derogatory names, and turned every act of friendship into a betrayal. The anxiety never subsided, and the beatings continued. 2 months into their marriage, Doris was thrilled to learn she was expecting a child. Jordan, however, gave a terrifying response. He insisted that she terminate the pregnancy and even arrange for an abortion. Doris declined. Jordan made an attempt to induce a miscarriage. He forced her to drink harmful medications and sit in boiling water. He repeatedly thrashed her after that failed. At one point, he threatened to kill her and the child by holding a gun to her while driving. Doris calmed him down. That experience was so terrifying that she would always be afraid to sit in the front seat of a car. On February 8, 1942, she gave birth to her son, Terry Paul Jordan, in spite of all the odds. They both survived, which was a miracle. Doris had had enough by 1943. She locked Jordan out of their Cincinnati house with her mother's assistance. She made a divorce filing. In retrospect, she stated that what she believed to be love was actually jealousy so ill that it ruined her tranquility. It was difficult to kick him out. In those days, divorce was a great source of shame, particularly for a young mother. However, Doris and her son were spared. She was able to regain control over her life and profession thanks to that decision. Doris fell in love with saxophonist George Weidler in 1946, a few years later. They got to know each other when Les Brown's band was on tour. Before being married, they shared hotel rooms, which sparked rumors about their romance. The 1940s found this disturbing. Les Brown even attempted to intervene, but he was disregarded. On March 30, 1946, they got married after leaving the band and relocating to Hollywood. The wedding is scheduled to take place between Doris's night show and Weidler's matinee. Their audacity established the standard for the future. Even though George wasn't as violent as Jordan, Doris still felt hurt by the marriage. He had no desire to be Terry's stepfather. The thought of Doris's mother and kid residing with them disturbed him. He also cheated on her. George found it difficult to live under Doris's shadow as her reputation increased. Being referred to as Mr. Doris Day bothered him. The marriage disintegrated rapidly. He stopped it via letter in 1949, only 3 years later. According to some, they were only together for 8 months. This time, Doris felt deceived differently. Her faith was broken, but there were no injuries. Despite sinking into sadness, she gave her all to her task. Doris startled her followers with her memoirs in 1976. I firmly believe that no two people should get married before they have lived together, she wrote. This resulted from her own difficult experiences. When Doris Day married film producer Martin Melcher on her 29th birthday, she believed she had at last achieved stability. She thought Melcher would be the companion she needed after years of hard work and 2 disastrous marriages. He became more than just her spouse. In addition, he became her manager and adopted her son Terry. At first glance, the arrangement appeared ideal, yet this choice allowed Melcher complete control over her personal and professional lives. With her gentle and dependable disposition, Doris let him take care of everything. Without ever consulting her, he made financial decisions, signed contracts, and chose their residence. She trusted him because she thought he had her best interests in mind, but this trust would end in heartache. Melcher dominated every aspect of Doris's career for the next 17 years. For financial gain, he coerced her into doing movies she didn't want to. Doris had to play the lead in films such as Where Were You When the Lights Went Out, 1968, Caprice, 1967, The Ballad of Josie, 1967, and Do Not Disturb, 1965. She didn't have a voice, but she didn't like the scripts and thought these parts weren't for her. Melcher had an easy objective. Get as much money as you can from her. Doris was exhausted and dissatisfied because she felt stuck in a grueling schedule. She wanted to work on worthwhile projects, but Melcher prevented her from achieving her goals. Colleagues and friends witnessed what was happening. However, Doris was too alone to notice it for herself. It was a recipe for catastrophe. The nightmare came true when Melcher passed away unexpectedly in April 1968. Doris discovered that she had lost her whole $20 million fortune, which is now worth over $150 million. To make matters worse, she owed $450,000. She had relied on Melcher and Jerome Rosenthal, their attorney, to safeguard her fortune. They squandered it on bad investments instead. They invested her money in dubious oil and gas ventures, bankrupt hotels, phony real estate transactions, and other catastrophes. Rosenthal even looked out for himself over Doris and accepted kickbacks. It was among the most significant betrayals in the history of Hollywood. Doris sued Rosenthal and was awarded a record $22.8 million. However, she only regained a small portion of what she had lost following years of conflict and his bankruptcy. To top it all off, Doris discovered that Melcher had surreptitiously registered her for the Doris Day show. Before CBS called her to begin production, she was unaware. Working in television was never her dream job. After her final movie in 1968, she had intended to retire, but Melcher had already squandered the show's proceeds. She was forced to comply in order to settle her obligations. The first day of the show was September 24, 1968. After being compelled to live in a world she had not chosen, Doris dealt with her grief and fatigue. She eventually took over, and the program operated for 5 seasons. However, the manner it started served as yet another illustration of how thoroughly Melcher had manipulated and tricked her. Doris Day made a choice in February 1969 that would forever alter her life. Jerome Rosenthal, who had overseen her business activities for almost 2 decades, was sued by her. Money wasn't the only factor here. It was about a level of betrayal that even Hollywood found shocking. After her husband Martin Melcher passed away in 1968, Doris, who was previously among the most paid celebrities in the world, had found a nightmare. She lost all of her fortune, which was over $20 million. She also owes taxes of about $450,000. Now, the woman who had made millions happy was in danger of becoming bankrupt. Since the late 1940s, Rosenthal had been living with Doris and Martin. They had complete faith in him. With the exception of a few entertainment contracts, he had even negotiated a deal in 1956 that paid him 10% of everything they owned or made. Nobody informed Doris that she had the option to have a different attorney defend her. She didn't realize how much she was signing away. The reality struck her hard after Martin's passing. Rosenthal had drained her of that trust. So, determined to fight back, she went to court in 1969. The ensuing conflict lasted more than 10 years and turned into one of Hollywood's most well-known legal battles. It was the most dramatic courtroom drama Doris had ever acted in. Lawyers were not the only ones exchanging papers. Some of the scenes resembled scenes from a thriller. Rosenthal refused to turn up important financial documents when the court ordered him to. He attempted to conceal the evidence and shut the file room. Sheriff's deputies had to break in to take the files because things had become that bad. This wasn't typical. It demonstrated how desperate Rosenthal was to hide his wrongdoing. Later, the judge described his actions as a catastrophe for all fundamental rules between a client and a lawyer. Among Rosenthal's schemes were dubious oil transactions, hotel frauds, and payments for unfinished or ineffective services. Every action demonstrated the extent to which he had ruined Doris's money. Doris finally received the verdict she had battled so hard for on September 18, 1974. The judge decided in her favor after 99 exhausting days in court, with 67 witnesses and more than 14,000 pages of transcript. Doris received $22.8 million, which at the time was a record amount for a civil case in California. Rosenthal was harshly criticized in the court's ruling. The judge described what he did as obscene and disgusting. He drew attention to the fact that Rosenthal had used Doris's money to fund unsuccessful hotel projects and phony oil agreements that solely served his own interests. Punitive damages of $1 million and $5 were part of the judgment. For the oil swindle, $6 million plus $2 million in interest, plus millions more for other losses and legal costs. However, the nightmare continued despite this significant triumph. Rosenthal was not going to concede. He used every available tactic to postpone payment by filing appeal after appeal. For another 5 years, Doris never saw a dollar of that money. After 10 arduous years of conflict, a solution was eventually reached in 1979. However, rather than the $22.8 million she had won, Doris only got $6 million. And Rosenthal wasn't the source of that. His insurance company provided it. Terry Melcher, her son, later claimed that the compensation was insufficient to cover their debt. Doris suffered greatly as a result of the years of stress and court cases. She had to continue working on the Doris Day Show, a job her late husband had secretly locked her into to help her pay the expenses. Rosenthal persisted in attempting to retaliate with more litigation, but he was ultimately disbarred in 1987, nearly 20 years after Doris initially sued him. The last marriage of Doris Day was as unexpected as it was discussed. She married Barry Comden in 1976 when she was 52 years old. He was employed as a maitre at the Beverly Hills Old World restaurant and was 12 years younger. They had an unconventional beginning to their romance. Barry would save bones and leftover meat from the restaurant and give them to Doris for her pets because he knew she liked animals, particularly dogs. This kind act warmed her heart and came to represent their relationship. However, it didn't take Barry long to see that Doris's affection for animals was significant. They occasionally had up to 14 dogs living with them. Her profession gradually became secondary to her love for animal welfare. To help her animal charity, the pair even attempted to launch a Doris Day pet food line, but the venture failed in a pyramid scheme scandal. A mixture of love and hardship characterized their marriage, and Barry frequently felt inferior to Doris's animal companions. Things had collapsed by 1982. To anyone who would listen, Barry grumbled that Doris was more concerned about her pets than with him. "The last straw was when I was ejected from my bed to make room for Tiger, a poodle," he once remarked. She didn't just love animals, she fought for them. She founded the Doris Day Animal Foundation and the Doris Day Animal League, fostered animals at home, and worked to get them adopted. Friends said that their home had become a true animal sanctuary full of rescued dogs. In contrast, Doris remained committed to her mission, focusing all of her energy on her animals and charitable endeavors. The most devastating loss in Doris's life occurred in 2004, when her only child, Terry Melcher, passed away at the age of 62 following a battle with skin cancer. Barry never remarried because he felt he was constantly competing with her dogs. Terry became a Pinnacle track manufacturer acknowledged for working with the Byrds and the Beach Boys. Doris and Terry had been very close, especially after the darkish days of the 1960s. Terry had once concept approximately producing song for Charles Manson. He even lived in the residence in which the Manson-owned family later murdered Sharon Tate. The horror of that point left deep scars, and Doris made Terry move for his safety. After that, they have become even closer. They owned the Cypress Hotel together and teamed up on animal welfare tasks. When Terry died, Doris said it became the best heartbreak of her life. She felt the loss deeply and missed him each day. Without a circle of relatives left, she poured herself into her animal reasons even greater. Doris spent her very last years in Carmel via the Ocean, California. She grew to become her back on Hollywood and dedicated herself to animal welfare. Her domestic was always full of rescued pets. She co-owned the Cypress Lodge, a motel famous for welcoming pets. She led efforts like Global Spay Day, helping offer over 1.5 million low-cost spay and neuter surgical procedures international. Her foundation gave presents for humane education and vet take care of seniors' pets. She fought for laws to guard wild horses and prevent puppy mills. Even in her 90s, she stayed active, operating for the animals she loved so much. Her group still paintings these days, carrying on her task throughout the USA. Doris died peacefully on May 13, 2019 on the age of 97 after getting pneumonia. She had asked for no funeral, no memorial, and no grave marker. She failed to want a fuss. Instead, she wanted human beings to honor her by using assisting animals through her basis. Even in demise, she stayed real to what mattered most to her. Her 1975 e-book Doris Day Her Personal Tale shocked many lovers. She worked with author A.E.H. Hot. 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 Warm. Hot. Warm. 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 Hotchner to show the truth about her lifestyles. The book shared painful details that failed to fit her exact lady photo. She observed her first marriage at 17 to Al Jordan. He became violent and controlling. He beat her, threatened to kill her, and tried to pressure her to have an abortion when she became pregnant with Terry. The abuse changed into so awful that she almost lost the baby. One night time, Al took her to an abandoned place with a gun, threatening her existence. Doris eventually made him depart and he killed himself 14 years later. Heiner, who knew her properly, stated Doris had a candy and sour existence. In spite of the entirety, she stayed tight and fantastic. She knew people noticed her as Passover goody two-shoes and admitted that her actual story could wonder them. After her loss of life, her grandson, Ryan Melcher, shared an unhappy reality. He had been stored away from Doris for the last 14 years of her life. He stated her supervisor, Bob Bashara, blocked him from seeing her. Ryan recalled how excited they both were to plot a dinner collectively after Terry's loss of life, however Bashara stopped it. Ryan in no way got to say goodbye. He found out approximately her demise on social media. In the long run, Doris Day's existence became full of love, heartbreak, and an unshakable devotion to animals that outlasted the whole thing else.